Some driver news and some driver speculation. Zach, Harrison Burton said last week he expects to be a driver next year. Do we have any idea where?
I personally have not heard anything yet regarding Harrison's plans. It sounds like, if anything, it's probably in the Xfinity Series, which I don't think is a bad thing. We've seen guys like Cole Custer go down to the Xfinity Series. He won a championship last year. Now he's on his way back up to the Cup Series. I think winning at that level, winning at any of the national series level is kind of paramount, in my opinion, especially as young as Harrison is. Go get that experience. Go win again. Go prove your worth. If you've got to climb that mountain again, you might as well win while you're doing it.
What do you hear, Dustin?
I mean, I think it's the same thing. It's. I think at this point he got moved up pretty quickly, and I mean it's not, and it's a challenging situation for any young driver, and I think you have to look at a longer runway on these drivers because they just don't have the practice that practice time like it used to be. I mean, look. Brett, we're old school guys, and we can remember weekends where it was like 2.5, nearly 3 hours of practice for the Cup Series with 55-minute sessions before a race. And you don't have that. Now you have the sim stuff, and that's supposed to replace it, and it can do a lot of things, but it can't do everything. So, I heard somebody talking to somebody this week. Obviously the talk was about Harrison Burton winning in his 98th career Cup start, which was William Byron won in his 98th. His guy's first win in his 98th career Cup start. Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott got their first victories in their 99th career Cup start. And somebody made the point, that you don't really judge a young driver till they've got about 100 races in and see the development. And look, he's been at this top level. It's been tough. It hasn't worked out as well as he would hope, and he's admitted that. Yes, now what's the next thing you do is how to refine the craft and how to refine it to where you can be a winning driver. And I think you look at a situation. There aren't many of the Cup rides left, and I'm not sure if you can go down and win in the Xfinity. I think it might be better than just to be a middle of the pack or further back in the pack in the Cup Series at this point.
Well, in the Xfinity Series, we now know Brandon Jones, Zach, is going to go back to Joe Gibbs Racing next year.
Which I think makes a lot of sense in some senses. At the same time, you look at what he's done the last couple of years at Junior Motorsports, it just has not worked. It's unfortunate. We know he's a talented driver from what he did at JGR from 2018 to 2022. He was one ill-timed bump from Ty Gibbs away from advancing to the championship 4 in 2022, and had a realistic shot at that championship. I don't think it's crazy to think that he can rekindle that success getting back into those cars in 2025. Again, it's unfortunate the last couple of years just have not produced any sort of success in that number 9 car for JRM. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a chemistry thing. I don't know if he's been able to find the right feel behind the wheel of that car. But going back to JGR, where it's a known commodity, both him as a driver and the guys that he'll be working with, presumably, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't know. I mean, maybe Denny Hamlin runs another 5 years and he just keeps going. But, obviously at some point, Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota will have to find a replacement driver for Denny Hamlin. Do they look at, if you're running the Xfinity Series and having a lot of success, does that open the door, or that still wouldn't be enough? But again, you're back in that organization. And quite frankly, next year is a prove-it year for Brandon Jones. And yes, the last 2 years haven't been horrible for him, and it just hasn't worked out. So now you have to prove it to the garage that you can win in this type of equipment. And look, that's kind of what Sheldon Creed looked at trying to use this year. And while he hasn't done it, certainly come close a number of times this year. And I think some of his stock has risen just because he's up there a little bit more. But again, at the end of the day, you still got to win races. Brandon Jones needs to win races. Sheldon Creed needs to win races, and that's the next thing. And as we talk about, like a guy like Harrison Burton needs to win more races. And he had a 4-win season in the Xfinity Series before moving up to Cup. So you can do that, then that opens doors. And if you're Joe Gibbs Racing, that's one of the top organizations. So here's your chance.
And finally, Christian Eckes, who's currently competing for a truck championship, is signed on to drive for Kaulig in the Xfinity Series next year.
It's another great hire for Kaulig Racing, I think. We know now that it's going to be him, Josh Williams, and Daniel Dye driving their Xfinity cars in 2025. And I think the thing that jumped out to me listening to Chris Rice last week at Darlington is the fact that there's a real intentional target for Kaulig Racing to focus on winning championships at that level and winning races again, and not asking their drivers to do a bunch of different things at the same time, like an AJ Allmendinger has done, where he's bouncing back and forth between full-time Xfinity competition and then jumping into the Cup Series car. Josh Williams made a couple of Cup Series starts in that 16 car as well. I think going into next year, having that consistency and being able to grow with some of these young, talented guys like a Dye, like an Eckes, I think it gives Kaulig a better chance to improve and set itself up for more long-term success in the future.
And I think for Kaulig, I think the end of the season is critical for them in the Xfinity Series for that, because you've got more younger, while Josh has experience, you've got younger drivers with Daniel and Christian moving up, and it's going to, if you're not running well, it's going to be challenging for them to kind of lead and help steer the organization. And I think they're getting better. I mean, Kaulig was way off earlier this year, and it was just, I think obviously for Kaulig fans, it's very disappointing in what they've done. And at times, and Chris Rice would admit that. And they've made steps forward, and I think they need to make some big steps here the last part of the season to put themselves in good position for next year with the young drivers. And I think next year will be exciting. You're looking at for Chevrolet moving up a Christian Eckes, and then you've also got on the Toyota side of Corey Heim. So I mean, you're getting some of these guys to move up and watch the development, and there's some other good young drivers on the way as well.